the Grand Hall of the Catharic's Dominion had never been silent before. Not once in 9,000 years of recorded history. But now, 300 delegates from 41 star systems sat frozen, staring at the small human woman, standing alone at the center of the chamber, her hands clasped behind her back, like she was waiting for a bus rather than addressing the most powerful empire in the galaxy. Emperor Vashtar Keladun, ruler of 11,000 worlds, gripped the arms of his obsidian throne so hard the metal groaned. "You destroyed my flagship," he said, his 4 eyes narrowing. "You destroyed the Devastation's crown, with 12 people and a shuttlecraft." "Correct," said Commander Elena Reyes. "That was our single greatest warship. 2 kilometers of armored hull, 900 plasma cannons, a crew of 40,000, I'm aware." The Emperor leaned forward. "And you're telling me this was not your full strength, that this was merely a demonstration?" Elena allowed herself the smallest smile. "Your Majesty," she said, "that was just the beginning." The chamber erupted into chaos, shouting delegates, alarmed guards reaching for weapons, an ambassador from the Threll Concord fainting into his chair. But none of this had begun that way. 3 days earlier, humanity hadn't even been a footnote in the Dominion's threat assessments. 3 days earlier, the Ice Meridian had been drifting silently at the edge of Catharic space, running dark, its crew watching sensor feeds in tense silence. Elena Reyes stood at the observation deck, arms crossed, watching the distant lights of the Dominion's border fleet pulse against the void like a swarm of hungry insects. "They're not going to just let us pass through," said Lieutenant Marcus Webb, hunched over his console. He was young, 26, barely out of the academy, but sharp enough that Elena trusted his read on tactical situations more than officers twice his age. Border Patrol reports 3 unauthorized incursions into Dominion space this decade. All 3 ships vanished, no survivors, no wreckage. "They didn't vanish," said Dr. Amara Osei, the ship's xenolinguist, not looking up from her translation console. "They were made examples of. The Catholics believe in psychological deterrence. It's cheaper than actually fighting." Elena said nothing. She'd read the classified briefings, humanity's first true contact with a galactic power, and it wasn't going to be gentle. First contact diplomacy. It was going to be a chess match where the other side thought humans were pawns. Her orders were simple, and terrifying in their simplicity. Establish contact with the Catharic's Dominion, negotiate safe passage for the 3 human colony ships currently crossing contested space, and do not, under any circumstances, reveal Earth's true military capacity. The problem was, the Catharics didn't negotiate. They conquered. "Incoming hail," Webb said suddenly, his voice tightening. "Dominion cruiser, the Ash Crown, they've locked weapons." On screen, the alien that appeared was reptilian, gray-scaled, with 4 amber eyes, arranged in a diamond pattern across a narrow skull. Captain Threz Valoon of the Catharic's 3rd Fleet did not bother with pleasantries. "Unregistered vessel," he said, his translated voice flat and mechanical. "You have entered sovereign Dominion territory. Surrender your ship and crew, or be destroyed." Elena stepped into frame. "Captain Valoon, I'm Commander Elena Reyes of Earth. We're not here for conflict, 3 colony vessels transiting this region, and we request safe passage under Earth," Valoon repeated, and something like amusement flickered across his scaled face. "The primitive world. Yes, our scouts have logged your species. Pre-warp technology as of 40 years ago. Remarkable how quickly vermin learned to fly." The bridge crew tensed. Elena raised a hand before anyone could respond. "We'd prefer to resolve this diplomatically," she said calmly. "There is no diplomacy for species that have not earned a seat at the table," Valoon said. "You have 30 seconds to power down your engines and prepare for boarding, or I will reduce your vessel to debris." 29 seconds later the Ash Crown opened fire. But no one expected what happened next. The Meridian's shields didn't just hold, they barely flickered. Valoon's weapons officer fired 3 more volleys, each one absorbed like rain against stone. On the Catharic's bridge, confusion turned to something closer to fear. "Impossible," Valoon hissed. "Pre-warp species do not possess shielding of this magnitude." "We're not pre-warp anymore," Elena said. "We've had 40 years to catch up. Turns out humans are fast learners when properly motivated." She nodded to Webb. "A single targeting laser, not a weapon, just a laser, traced a perfect line across the Ashcrown's hull, illuminating exactly where every one of its critical systems sat. Life support, reactor core, weapons array, command deck, all marked, all visible. That was a warning, Elena said. We could have ended your ship in the time it took you to fire on us. We chose not to. Consider that generosity, Captain, because it won't last if you fire again. The comm went dark. The Ash-Crown retreated. It should have ended there. It didn't. Word of the encounter reached Emperor Vashtor Keledun within hours, carried by a panicked Captain Valoon, who insisted the human vessel had been equipped with technology beyond anything in the Dominion's databases. The Emperor, a being who had personally overseen the conquest of 19 star systems, did not believe in primitive species developing miracle shields overnight. He believed in liars, and liars needed to be punished publicly. Send the Devastation's crown, he ordered his war council. Not to negotiate. To end this. The council had made a terrible mistake, though none of them knew it yet. The Devastation's crown found the meridian. 18 hours later, its 2-kilometer hull blotting out the stars like an artificial moon. Admiral Threk Solvan, the Dominion's most decorated war hero, did not send a hail. He simply opened fire with every weapon the flagship possessed. Aboard the Meridian, Elena watched the incoming barrage on the tactical display. Enough firepower to crack a planet's crust, and felt something colder than fear settle into her chest. Not because she doubted her ship would survive, because she knew what she was about to have to do, and she knew it would change everything. Deploy the shuttle, she said quietly. Webb turned, stunned. Commander, that's a 2-person tactical shuttle against a dreadnought. I know what it is, Lieutenant. Deploy it. The single shuttle, barely the size of a Dominion escape pod, launched into the void between the two ships. Admiral Solvan's sensors flagged it as a fighter craft, insignificant, and his gunnery officers didn't even bother retargeting. That was their second mistake. The shuttle didn't fire a single conventional weapon. Instead, it released a spread of small devices, no larger than a human fist, that drifted silently toward the Devastation's crown's hull and attached themselves to precise points along its superstructure. Points that had been mapped in the 18 hours since the Ashcrown encounter using nothing but passive sensors and old-fashioned human ingenuity. Aboard the flagship, Admiral Solvan frowned at his readouts. What are those devices? Explain. No one could. Because 30 seconds later, they detonated in a precisely sequenced pattern. Not enough force to vaporize the ship outright, but enough to sever its reactor containment, rupture its primary weapon conduits, and cripple its engines in a single elegant strike. The Devastation's crown, pride of the Dominion fleet, went dark, and drifted, powerless, a wounded giant, amid the stars. The Queen suddenly froze when she received the report. Emperor Vashtor did not have a queen. The phrase belonged to the Threl Concord's monarch, watching the events unfold from her own listening post, horrified and fascinated in equal measure. Word spread across 41 systems within hours. A species barely a generation removed from primitive rocketry had disabled the Dominion's most powerful warship without killing a single crew member aboard. That was the detail that terrified them most. Humanity hadn't destroyed the ship, it had chosen not to. Which brought them back to the Grand Hall, 3 days after first contact, where Elena Reyes stood alone before the most powerful empire in known space and calmly informed them that crippling their flagship had been just the beginning. Emperor Vashtor's 4 eyes studied her. Searching for the lie, the bluff, the trick. He found none, only calm, unshakable certainty. What do you want? He finally asked, and the question cost him visibly. An emperor who had never once in his reign asked what an enemy wanted. Safe passage for our colony ships, Elena said. Recognition as a sovereign independent species under Dominion accords, and an end to the belief that any world without a warp drive 40 years ago is somehow beneath basic respect. And if I refuse, Elena's expression didn't change, then you'll learn exactly how much restraint we showed today, Your Majesty. We didn't come here to conquer you. We came here to be left alone. But we will not be threatened, and we will not be dismissed. Humanity has spent its entire existence being underestimated, by history, by disaster, by each other. We're done being underestimated by anyone else. Silence stretched through the Grand Hall, heavy and absolute. Then, slowly, Deliberately, Emperor Vashtor Kelidun rose from his throne, a gesture, Elena would later learn, that no Dominion emperor had made for a foreign delegate in over 3,000 years. Safe passage is granted, he said. Sovereignty is recognized, and Commander Reyes. He paused, something unreadable crossing his ancient reptilian features. Should Earth ever require allies, the Dominion will remember this day. Remember that we underestimated you once, and it nearly cost us everything. Elena inclined her head, and for the first time since stepping off the meridian allowed herself to breathe. Behind her, unseen by the assembled delegates, 3 human colony ships crossed safely into the open dark beyond Dominion space, carrying 40,000 souls toward a new home, protected not by overwhelming force, but by the quiet, unbreakable will of a species that had learned, at last, exactly what it was capable of. The galaxy would remember this day for 1,000 years. Not as the day humanity proved its strength, but as the day the galaxy finally understood. Humanity had never needed to prove anything at all, aboard the Meridian. 3 hours later, the celebration was quiet, no cheering, no fanfare, just exhausted relief passed between crew members who understood exactly how close they had come to catastrophe. Elena sat in the observation lounge, watching the stars, when Dr. Osi sat down beside her, 2 cups of recycled coffee in hand. You gambled everything on that shuttle run, Osi said, handing her a cup. If Solvan's gunnery officers had been paying closer attention. I know. Elena wrapped both hands around the cup, grateful for the warmth. But I also knew something the Dominion didn't. They've spent 9,000 years fighting species that either surrender or throw everything they have into one desperate attack. They've never fought anyone who planned 3 moves ahead and held back on purpose. Is that what we did? Held back? Elena thought about the targeting laser tracing across the Ash Crown's hull. About the precisely calibrated charges that crippled a flagship without a single casualty. About every choice made not from weakness, but from control. That's exactly what we did, she said. And it worked because they couldn't imagine a species with the power to destroy them choosing not to. That confusion bought us more than any weapon could have. Webb appeared in the doorway, still pale from the tension of the last 3 days, but smiling for the first time since they'd entered Dominion space. Commander, Fleet Command is requesting a full report. They want to know how we pulled this off with a crew of 12. Elena rose, setting down her cup, and looked out at the vast dark where 3 colony ships were now safely beyond Dominion reach, carrying families toward a future that had, just days ago, seemed impossible. Tell them the truth, Lieutenant, she said. Tell them humanity didn't win today because we were the strongest species in the room. We won because we were the most patient, the most disciplined, and the most willing to hold power without needing to prove it every second we had it. She paused at the doorway, glancing back at the stars one last time. And tell them. This was just the beginning. And